There are two things you're never supposed to say if you work at a trading card company. First, it's that you can't ever acknowledge the secondary market, and if you do, you can't say that you're manipulating the prices. Second, you can never acknowledge the gambling aspect of the product, or say that the players might have an addiction. These issues, hidden under a layer of obscurity from the general public, form the bedrock of how companies like Konami, Wizards of the Coast, and Bandai skirt gambling law and continue to market their product to kids, addicted adults, and uncaring consumers alike. On top of this, each of these companies engage in their own terrible policies to milk as much money from the consumers as possible. As we all know by now, Konami has a very bad track record all around, but in today's discussion, we will be dealing specifically with their handling of the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. The company's policies result in insane price gouging for its Western audience, as well as the lowest standard in card quality among any major brand. Not only that, current tournament results show that this insane price gouging is still a problem, with the most popular competitive deck, Kashtira, fetching an eye-gouging price tag of around $900 to $1,200. Compared to my last video about this subject, the reasons are a bit different and more nuanced. While there's still the terrible secret rare pull rates, and of course, ban list shenanigans to drive new set sales, this particular wave of problems calls on a much more direct line of action by Konami. That's increasing cards in rarity, removing high-value cards from structure decks and reprint sets, and to top it all off, dramatically lowering card and print quality and the TCG to save a few quick bucks. The most common thing Konami will do to wring more money from its English audience is to increase the overall rarity of cards released. For the most recent release of Kashtira, Konami upshifted the following cards. Kashtira Theosis was a common in Japan, but a secret in the TCG. The field spell Pressure Planet Wraith Soul was moved up from a rare to a secret. Kashtira Rise Heart was moved up from an ultra to a secret. Telement Kashtira was moved up from a common to an ultra. Kashtira Rise Heart was moved up from a super to an ultra. This is the main reason Kashtira is so expensive in the TCG, despite being cents in the OCG. Cards that should have been available as commons have been upshifted to secret rares to milk the customer base dry. The currently $80 secret rare staple, Triple Tactics Thrust, was only a rare in the OCG. This is a modern example, but historically this trend was very common. Breakers of Shadow saw Solemn Strike upgraded from super rare to secret rare. The new challenger saw the entire Cleafort archetype moved up several rarities. Disc from super to secret, Cleafort Scout from rare to ultra rare, and lastly Carrier and Helix from common to super rares. Power of the Elements saw Sprite Blue moved up from super rare to secret rare. Sprite Starter moved from rare to ultra rare, and Primeval Planet Perlino moved from rare to secret rare. There are many different cases of this throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. However, one thing remains constant, and it's that consumers are hurt by the company's greed every single time. And what's more upsetting, it's not like this in the OCG. This is entirely done to prey on a market they think they can get away with. And they probably will. Oh, this is a depressing script. If you ever wanted to feel like Seto Kaiba and have one of only a few copies of a super meta relevant card, Konami has you covered, with exclusive tournament rare cards. Sometimes Konami will take a card released in Japan, and then instead of releasing in a set like usual, the card will be given out as a prize card for tournament winners. Unlike the match winner cards that say they can't be used in a duel, these cards are fully tournament legal. This is admittedly a more minor section that isn't super relevant at the moment, with the most recent prize card being a generic normal dragon monster. However, I feel like it should be mentioned because it's a pointlessly stupid policy. Usually it isn't a problem, but on occasion it annihilates a potential strategy's accessibility. The two biggest examples of this are with the cards number 106 Giant Hand and Minerva the Exalted Lightsworn. Giant Hand was released as a YCS prize card in 2013. As it was a generic monster negate on a rank 4 body, it was an extremely popular and strong choice in decks. It even featured in Corey McDuffle's first place 2015 North American Championship famous hat deck list. In hat format, the card would fetch around $400 to $500, but it would slowly creep up in price till it was around $1,200 before it would be reprinted. The card would be reprinted in Premium Gold Infinite Gold in 2016, just in time to terrorize players in Pepe. Minerva is a much more depressing case. Did you know that in 2016-2017, Lightsworns were an extremely viable meta deck with one of the highest top cut conversion rates ever in Yu-Gi-Oh history? Paired with a variety of outside engines like Zombies, Performages, and of course Brilliant Fusion, the deck could make insane plays, like easily making 3 Cyframe Omega and looping away the opponent's hand, or a ton of other negates and disruptions. However, the deck would only be usable by a select few people who had access to the Lightsworn prize card, Minerva the Exalted Lightsworn, as it was one of the best methods in the game at the time of milling cards and getting draw power at the same time. If you couldn't afford the $500 card, you couldn't play the deck. And the deck was extremely good. With a small collection of the same few people, running from event to event, collecting free wins from an option literally unobtainable by other players. What makes this even worse is the deck actually wanted to run 2 copies of Minerva for an optimized strategy. This would last until the card would be reprinted in 2017, unfortunately causing the card to have 2 fewer years of relevancy before it would be power crept out of the game by faster strategies. Supporting Konami's batshit anti-consumer rarity system is a continued trend of cutting cards out of Western releases of product. Cards that were available to be obtained in Japan would be replaced by less expensive and less used cards in the TCG release. Here we have a breakdown of cut cards in TCG structure decks over the past 10 years. Looking at this list of cut cards, a majority of recent structure decks have had cards cut, with a few notable exceptions. Looking at the entire list, we can see that even decks where nothing was cut out had no meaningful reprints anyway. Only 2 structure decks out of the 31 counted here had better value than their OCG counterpart, those being the Zombie structure deck and the Lightsworn structure deck. Despite how overall quality all these structure decks might seem, once put into context, we can see just how much the Western audience is missing out on. Why would Konami do something like this? The reason is simple: marketing and greed. At its most basic level, expensive chase cards sell sets. Magic the Gathering uses big expensive cards like Force of Will, Jace the Mind Sculptor, and Mana Crypt to market sets, putting these cards in their trailers and then later letting people share their pools online or amongst friends to drive word-of-mouth marketing. However, each reprint lowers the market value of cards, as well as how much players care about these cards being included in the set. Of course, this drives up the elephant in the room of modern card game design. Is a trading card game an actual game, or is it just an investment? This question has proven to be surprisingly hard to answer, with companies like Magic trying to straddle the line, satisfying no one in the process, and some companies like Force of Will taking the hard game stance and going completely bankrupt. With this question, Yu-Gi-Oh tries to have its cake and eat it too. However, reprints in Yu-Gi-Oh tend to affect the price of its cards more than with Magic. Mostly this is due to box price differences, but also with Magic having a larger general demand for cards, both due to their larger concentrated audience in North America, and with the more homogenized mana design. Regardless, this means that Konami ends up significantly more guarded and maintaining their chase cards' value, leaving Western products to end up being lower quality than in the OCG, where staples get reprinted constantly and in a variety of products. Who wants to buy a structure deck with 1 or 2 chase cards missing? This next section is a bit more rough. Basically, in almost every form of the word quality, Konami is screwing over the Western market. First up, the OCG just has more rarities than the TCG. As mentioned earlier, no cards are exclusive to Secret Rare. Cards are available in Supers or Ultras. This surprisingly leaves Ultra Rares to be the more expensive base rarity of cards in the OCG. What's also interesting is that in almost every pack, there are fewer Super and Ultra Rare cards than in the TCG counterparts. Let me clarify what I mean by this. In each individual set, there's a certain number of Ultra and Super Rares you can pull from, with the OCG having a more concentrated delivery of Super and Ultra Rares. All means it's a bit easier to get those chase cards in OCG than in TCG boxes, also meaning they put more cards at common and rare rarities than the TCG. What makes the OCG system interesting is that these Ultra and Super Rares are also available in a wide variety of higher rarities, such as Secret Rare, Prismatic Secret Rare, Starlight and Corrector's Rare, and even Ultimate Rares. Ultimate Rare cards never stopped in main sets in the OCG. Not only that, they have additional foiling on the card outside of just the texturing and the art. It's insane how much nicer OCG rarities are. Here's a side-by-side comparison of a TCG Ultimate and an OCG Ultimate. Nicer rarities aren't where this ends. OCG cards have an insanely nicer card stock. Here's a breakdown of card thickness of some popular card games. I measured these myself with a micrometer, and these are averages. By far, the thinnest cards come from the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG, and the thickest come from the One Piece TCG, which is more or less close to the Digimon TCG, and also with other Bandai games. They're all pretty uniform with card thickness. It might seem like a minute difference in thickness, but it's an insane quality difference with how well these cards can resist damage. It wasn't always like this. Older Yu-Gi-Oh cards were once significantly thicker and had a higher quality GSM, which is a standard for measuring bendability that I wasn't able to get a machine together in time for this video to release to measure for y'all. Konami has been consistently lowering card quality like a medieval king diluting the gold from his currency and hoping no one would notice. On top of these lower standards, we have a complete degradation of Konami's quality control. Misprints have gone from a collectible rarity to an almost expected part of cracking packs. Here is a segment that is just a collection of pictures where I explain specifically what machine fucked up in the printing process. This one is obviously where the cutter just wasn't aligned or calibrated at all. Luckily, the Starlight Rare was somewhat fine as it was cut from a different sheet. This one, where the gold hot stamp is gone, it almost seems like the machine was blocked by something. It's funny, because of the misprint, these cards are no longer legal for play. This is called crimping. It's where the heat sealing used for the packs accidentally hits the card and damages the top. Here's a smaller one where the ink just didn't have the toner it needed or the right mix of colors. Here's an abysmally bad miscut. I think you now get the point of misprints. These are very common, especially with more minor miscuts. If you check out most misprint collectors groups, prices have fallen for most misprints because it's just common now. It takes something extremely bad to get attention. Here's another funny printing error called card clumping. Basically, the machine that's supposed to randomize card distribution messes up, either from a programming error or on a mechanical level. The result is something like this, where dude is able to just open an insane level of Starlight Rares, while other people will get none. Remember, as in all things discussed in this video, it's not the person pulling the cards that's the problem, it's on Konami. I don't like how I have to say this, but I definitely do. Taking all of this into account, what can we gather about Konami's intentions behind this? Is it just pure greed? Perhaps some petty form of racism? Maybe it's just corporate stupidity from the Western Division. In any case, how Konami is currently operating is limiting the growth of the game. With prices as they are, it's very hard to get people playing, especially in this economy. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is only the largest it's ever been, thanks to events in the year 2020, and lockdowns forcing people to pick up new hobbies. Most of these new people got into the game thanks to online simulators like Dueling Book, EDO Pro, Nexus, and then much later, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. The point is, when the game is cheaper or even free, it's a lot easier to get people into the game and build a community. In order to push change, I'll be incredibly politically charged here. If you care about getting minorities and marginalized people into the game, don't intentionally take it out of their reach. I'm not a fan of this type of rhetoric, but it's the only language modern companies seem to respond to, so there you go. I'll end this video with an absolute classic. Here's a Konami employee's reaction to finding out a player used Dueling Book to get into the game. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time, fuck Konami.
So then for any of the ladies out there who think, oh, this is a daunting task, maybe card games aren't for me, this is a testament. Zoe is here. She's doing really well on the day. Do you have any words for them? Any of the ladies who say, maybe, I don't know if this is for me?
Don't be afraid to play tournaments, because I know so many ladies who play the game actually, but just on Dueling Books or